Welcome to another segment of provocative conversations destined to provoke further thought and spark greater questions regarding God, church, and the religious establishments of both the past and the present. I am the proud heretic, Mr. Provocateur himself. Hello, I am the proud heretic, Mr. Provocateur himself. We are continuing on from the subtopic of the divine generalities of the pandemic season. I'm again going to cover specific groups as we move on, but right now I'm covering what God has stated to me in general, the general things, events, and occurrences that will be seen and experienced during this pandemic period. We left off dealing with death, an issue, a topic that people don't like to deal with, but I need to speak the generalities of it. And I began to say there will be little regard for the lives of others. People's regard for life will be non-existent. People's lives will no longer matter. Human life. Now, again, this was from March 31st, 2020. Who knew that in June, Black Lives Matter would come? How little certain people's lives truly mattered. Now I'm seeing what God said on March 31st, where people's lives will no longer matter. Human life will lose its value. Human life will cease in its value. Human life will no longer have value. During this season, human bodies will be decimated. Human bodies will be destroyed. Human life will be devalued. People will no longer value the sanctity of human life. Life will lose its sanctity. People will no longer see other people's lives as being valuable. Now you're seeing people being hung. You're seeing people being ruthlessly killed. You're seeing people having bullets put into their backs and stuff. You're seeing people's heads being decapitated. People running people over, using their vehicles as killing machines, as missiles. Human bodies are being destroyed. Death will take its toll on the senses of the people. Death will have a desensitizing effect upon people. During this season, people will be desensitized to the amount of deaths that will be occurring. The amount of deaths will cause people to become numb. Their senses will not respond to death. They will be desensitized. For people to continue, they will have to become desensitized by everything that's going on around them, including the deaths and all. People will have to lose their sensitivity to continue throughout this season. They will have to lose their sensitivity. They will have to become insensitive to the things around them. Insensitivity will become the norm of the day. It will become the norm to be insensitive to all that is occurring. During this season, death will lose its face. The face of death will lose its features. People will no longer view death by its features. No longer will we see people when we see death. The features of people will be gone. All we'll see are numbers, and it won't even really matter. The face of death will lose its features. People will no longer see the features of the people dead. People's features will no longer matter. People will no longer see people when it comes to death. During this period, their features will no longer register. Hey, that was somebody's mother. That was somebody's sister. That was somebody's grandmother. That was somebody's daughter. That was somebody's pastor. That was somebody's doctor. That was somebody's lawyer. That was somebody's best friend. That was somebody's neighbor. That was somebody's coworker. That was somebody's boss. Won't even matter. People's earthly existence will no longer be relevant, will no longer have relevance. People's life will no longer be relevant. People's earthly identity will no longer be important. People's status will no longer matter. You have people like Herman Cain, the friend of Donald Trump, the black millionaire / billionaire. I should suppose he was a billionaire. I'm not sure, but I know that he was a millionaire. Herman Cain died, and his life didn't seem to matter. No longer relevant. His wealth, his riches, his status, no longer relevant. People's earthly identity will no longer be important. People's status will no longer matter. People will be viewed as nothing in relation to their death. During this period, death will seem to be the greater way of escape. Death will seem as being the way of escape from the devastation that is occurring. Death will seem to be the better option. People will desire death over life. People will desire to die rather than live. Living is not an option. Living is a demand. People who live during this period will live because of the demand for them to live. In other words, it's not going to be an option as to whether or not you live or die. If you live, it's because a demand was placed upon you, even if you desire to die and escape it all. People who live during this period will live because of the demand for them to live. People who die during this period is because there's a demand for them to die. This is not an option. It's almost like Judas. There was a demand for you to do what you did with Jesus. Joseph's brothers, there was a demand for you to do what you did for your brother. It was like Pharaoh with Moses. It was a demand for you to do what you did. It was what you were supposed to do. Now, that does not take away from the things that led up to this here, but it was all in the purposes and plans of. I won't go into all of that because then that becomes a controversy, but it is what it is, and you'll see what it is as you live. Just keep living. You'll see it. No one can stay the hand of death. God says no one can stay the hand of death. No one can stay the hand of life. No one can change the workings that be. No one can change the course of this virus. No one can change the course that the virus will take. The virus will take its course. The virus will complete its course. It will complete its destined course. This is what it must be. This is when it must be. This is where it must be. This is how it must be. Now, on March 31st, because he spoke to me 2 times, one in the AM and one in the PM. Here I am on the 31st of March in the PM. God says, you are correct in that people are being slowed in their process. I was speaking to someone, and oftentimes God will speak through you or speak a word, some revelation, some revealings through you instead of to you. He'll speak them through you, and you will hear them as you're speaking them. And that was something that happened with me on that day. I spoke to someone, and I don't know who it was at the time, but I've spoke to very few people at that time, and even up to this point right here, 8 months later. You are correct. He told me, you are correct in what you spoke, in that you said people are being slowed down in their life. Our lives are being slowed down. We've been moving too fast. Now, again, this was March. So we weren't understanding what was going on. I wasn't even fully understanding what was going on, but I knew that I was in some flow. I understood the virus by that time, but not what was wholly going on. He says to me, people are being slowed in their process of becoming. God is saying we're all in a process of becoming. We're all in the process of being transformed. But now we're being slowed down. Not that the process of us becoming is being slowed down, but that our life, our activity, our behavior patterns are being slowed down in this season during our process of becoming. Their process of becoming is being slowed tremendously in this season. The people of this generation refuse to slow down enough to hear what is being spoken. People never stop to hear. They never slow down long enough to actually hear what is being spoken. People are simply too involved in other things during their day to hear, which is the reason why the people of this generation are not hearing and have such a problem with hearing. This is why there is a pause in the earth. That is why the earth is pausing. This period will teach people to be still. This season will teach or will cause the people of this generation to learn stillness. This season will teach people about the need to be still. It will teach them the importance of being still. And up to this point, people are still not wanting to be taught. But you will, people, you will. Right now is the divine period in time where evolvement is occurring. We are all evolving, changing, migrating. This is the divine period in time for things to evolve. Evolvement requires both time and patience, and we seem to never have time or patience. This period involves both time and patience. Time and patience are the necessary ingredients for this season. People's patience is being established throughout this season. Patience is what is being established. Due to the constant speed at which people are living out their daily lives, the people have yet to consciously evolve. Because of their daily speed of living, the people have yet to properly evolve. Their life speed is hindering them from properly evolving, doing too much, doing too little, giving too little time to do what they should be doing much of, but giving so much time to everything that they should be doing very little of. The people's process of becoming is being hindered by their way of living and is keeping them from consciously experiencing their process of becoming. The people's pace at which they are living is entirely too fast. The people are living too fast of a pace to consciously process. In other words, God is saying we are taking very little or no time to consciously, to purposely process, see ourselves, see the hand of God processing us into who we're to be. We don't even see our process of becoming. We don't even want to contribute to our process of becoming. Even though things are occurring, and despite the fact that things are being spoken, the people are moving too fast to properly process what is occurring and what is being spoken. People's life speed is entirely too fast for the ordered pace of their process. Again, people's life speed, the speed at which people are living their lives, is entirely too fast for the ordered pace of their process. In other words, the pace that God has ordered in order for you to process properly, you are not even conscious of that pace. And this season is bringing you into a conscious state of that pace, because this season is causing everything to be slowed down, slowed to a slow still, a stillness, a stand in place. for the ordained speed of their process. There is an ordained speed at which things are supposed to process in your life. And many people are moving at such an unordained speed in life that they aren't able to submit to the ordained speed that God has determined for their life. But that's what this season is doing. The generalities of this season. Up to this point, the pace at which people were living was too fast for them to process. This season is designed to help the people to get through their process. This season was designed to move at such a rate of speed that the people would be able to actually see through their process and then get through their process. This season that we're in is so divinely designed to move at such a rate of speed, such a slow rate of speed, at such a slow pace, that people would be able to actually consciously and intentionally see through the process that God is working right now, and then be able to get through their process. Because without this season, neither you nor I will complete our process. Our process, our destiny requires this season. This is the season for people to recognize their need for processing, to recognize their need to be processed. We were moving too fast to recognize the processing that was occurring, to recognize the fact that we were in need of some processing, to recognize that God needed and desired to process us, but we weren't sitting still long enough to be processed, at least not consciously, not in a participating manner. Through this season, people are being required to slow down in their activities in order that they might evolve, in a proper manner. This is the time for people's processing to occur. This is the time for people's process of evolving to complete itself. This is the season for the people's processing of becoming to be recognized. This is a slow-paced period. This is a period where everything will be done in a slower pace. Everything will take place at a much slower pace. Nothing will be rushed. Nothing will be able to be rushed. Do you know right now, even if you tried to order something from Amazon or somewhere else and put a rush on it, it's still coming slower than what regular mail used to come? Nothing can be rushed. Nothing will be able to be rushed. We're going to rush through this season. Oh, you are. We're going to rush into football season. Oh, you are. Okay. We're going to rush into this and we're going to rush into, oh, you are. And you're going to rush and open the schools. Oh, you are. Okay. You're going to rush and get a cure for the virus. Okay. And you're going to rush and get the economy back, right? Okay. All right. Okay. We'll see. And we're going to rush back into the church houses to get back to our norm. Oh, yeah. Okay. You are. Okay. All right. Let's just see. Okay. Everything during this season will take time and process. Nothing will be microwaved. Nothing will be microwavable in this season. Everything during this season will lose its normal pace. Nothing in this season will occur at its normal pace. This entire season will be a slow season. Everything in this season will be slow. Everything in this season is designed to slow the season. Everything is designed in this season to slow down the season. This is a period of slow-paced processing. This is a period for people to slowly and consciously process their ongoing state of becoming. This is a period for people to slowly recognize their becomingness. This is a period for people to recognize everything that is becoming, to recognize everything that is coming to be. People need to process everything that is coming to be. everything that is coming into being, people need to take the time and opportunity to see what is occurring. People need to take notice of what is happening right before them. People need to slow their pace and ingest what is occurring in this season. People do not want to miss what is going forth in this season. People do not want to ignore the evolving that is occurring. The earth is evolving. Humanity is evolving. Systems are evolving. Nothing will be the same. Nothing will remain as it once was. Everything is evolving. Everything is changing. Everything needs to be recognized. This is a season of reflection. This is a season for people to reflect. Throughout this season, people are being given a period of time and the necessary period in time to reflect. Everyone should be reflecting. Again, I'll repeat that. Everyone should be reflecting. This is a period for people to reconnect, within themselves, with themselves. This is a period for people to reconnect themselves with their own consciousness. This is a period for people to connect with their own conscious state. Reflection is the key to getting through the season that you are in. God says reflection is the key to getting through the season that you're in. Without proper reflection, you will not get through this season. You may indeed get through the physical aspects of this season, but you will not get through the psychological aspects of this season, not without proper reflection. Again, you may indeed get through the physical aspects of this season, but you will not get through the psychological aspects of this season, not without proper reflection. See, the proper reflection is what is going to bring you through that process that you need mentally in order to get through the psychological aspects of what you're going to experience in this season. The psychological impact of this season demands your proper reflection during this period of reflection. No one will get through this season without reflecting, without proper reflection. Even though you may get through the season itself, you will remain in the actual period of this season if you do not take the time to properly reflect during this season. God says, even if you make it through this pandemic season, this long and rough season, he said, even if you make it through this season, if you didn't take the time necessary to process, to consciously process and reflect, do some changing, do some evolving, some conscious participatory evolving during this period, you may get through this period, but you will remain in this period psychologically and in many other ways if you do not take the time to properly reflect during this season. People will not be able to maintain their sanity during this season. You're going to begin to see that, I'm sure. The quietness during this season will be deafening. The quietness during this season will be deafening. People will be deafened due to the quiet stillness of this season. The quiet stillness during this season will drive people insane. The quiet stillness during this season will drive people insane. People will be driven to the point of insanity due to the quiet stillness of this season. They can't go to their mistress. They can't go to their clubs. They can't go to their bars. They can't get to their liquor. They can't get to their weed man. They can't get to their meth man. They can't go out there and get away from the family. They can't escape. They're locked in. They can't go to school. They can't go to work. People are going to be driven insane, which is why you need to be sitting down and reflecting and consciously participating in your becoming process, your process of becoming, in order that your mind can be transformed, in order that your mind can be kept together, doing all of this that will be going on. During this season, the hearts of people will faint due to their inability and their unwillingness to hear me. People will literally lose their sanity during this season because of not hearing me, because of them not hearing what I am saying in this season. My voice is to be heard in this season. My voice is the only thing that will keep the people's sanity. My voice is to be heard and adhered to by each individual during this season. People's sanity during this season is dependent upon their ability to hear me. Unless people can hear me, they will lose heart during this season. This season will be a season that is beyond measure. This season will be stressing to the senses. The human senses will be stressed beyond measure. The human senses will be stretched beyond measure. Stressed beyond measure, stretched beyond measure. People will be demanded to hear from me during this season. People will have a greater demand to hear from me as in no other season prior to this season. During this season, people will demand to hear my voice. They will demand to hear what I am saying. This season demands the hearing of my voice. My voice will direct you in this season if you hear me. My voice will lead you in this season if you hear me. My voice will keep you if you let it keep you. On April the 6th, 2020, God said there is a correcting that is occurring. Things are correcting. Things are being corrected in this season. Things in this period are correcting themselves. Things are in a period of correcting. This is a period of correction. This is a period where correction is occurring. This period is to address the incorrectness. This season is to address the incorrectness of our day. A lot has been incorrect. A lot has been done incorrectly. A lot is being done incorrectly. A lot continues to be incorrect. God says on this day, the virus, the generalities that is, this virus is making its rounds upon the young and the old, the poor and the rich, the no-named and the powerful, the black and the white, the Hispanic and Asian, male and female. This virus is not gender specific. This virus is not nationality specific. This virus is not racially specific. This virus is not social status specific. This virus is not class specific. This virus is not age specific. This virus has no perceived logic. This virus has no perceived rhyme or reason. This virus makes no sense. The repercussions of this virus will be widespread. The repercussions will be worldwide. The world will feel the effects of this virus. April 6th this was. The world will tremble because of this virus. This virus will have its effects upon every facet of every social society. This virus will have lasting effects. Now that's something. This virus will have lasting effects. Is this part of why so many people who have had the virus speaks of all of these post-virus symptoms and issues and ailments now? The lasting effects of this virus will be more impacting than the deaths. The deaths during this season will become easier to deal with than the actual effects. The effects of the virus, rather than the deaths of the virus, will be the changing force. The effects of the virus, rather than the deaths from the virus, will be the changing force. That seems to speak toward the outward societal effects of the virus and everything that the pandemic season is bringing forth. That will be the changing force. The deaths from this virus will have their effects, which will be more personal. But the overall effects of the virus will have a deeper social impact. That's what he's saying. The social impact of this virus will have unprecedented effects. But the force of change will come from the overall effects of this virus rather than from the overall deaths of the virus. There will be great suffering. People will suffer greatly due to this virus. People will suffer throughout the world due to the virus. People will turn to unprecedented means. People will do whatever they can to survive. This will be the survival of the fittest. This will become a race for survival. People will be left to pull from within themselves. They'll be left to pull from within themselves. People will begin to pull from within. The virus is silencing. The virus is creating a silence. The virus is silencing voices. The virus is silencing the familiar voices. The familiar voices are being taken over by the virus. The virus is silencing the voices that people have become accustomed to. The outside voices of the people are being silenced. The voices that were before the virus are being put to silence by the virus. The virus is changing everything that is familiar. The virus is removing the familiar sounds. The virus is removing the familiar sights. The virus is removing the familiar activities. The virus is removing the familiar family components. The virus is impacting the state of the economy. The economic world is shaking. This is on April the 6th. The economic world is shattering to pieces. The gains of the world are turning into losses. The buildings are being destroyed from within. The buildings are being dismantled from within. The buildings are left standing, but the economic flow within those buildings are coming to a halt. Though the buildings remain, the people within those buildings are being dismantled. Wow. The political system will be totally revamped, and I will really beat this real good because I have a topic on that. The political system will be totally revamped. The political system will receive a total overhaul. The people will place demands upon their political systems that will change the systems. The people will demand more. The people will begin to demand more from their political systems. And this was April the 6th. This will be a very hard time for many. Many people will suffer. Many people will lose. Many people will be without. Some will maintain their wealth, but many will lose their wealth. Many will lose their positional status, but many will gain their positional status. This will be a time of great losses, but this will also be a time of great gains. This is a time of flip-flop. This is a time where things will flip flop. Truly, the last will be first and the first will be last. The tail will become the head and the head will become the tail. On June the 3rd, God said to me, and I have a note saying this message came to me during the onset of the George Floyd murder by the Minneapolis police. A divine moment has approached. June 3rd, that was a very important day of revelation for me. A divine moment has approached. You have approached a divine moment. You have approached a divine moment of divinity. You are in a season of divinity. There is an uproar of divinity. This is a season of uproar. You are in a season of divine uproar. You are witnessing an uproar of divinity. This season of uproar is not just an occurrence. This that you are seeing is not just another occurrence. This uproar that you are experiencing is divine. The uproar that you are seeing is a divine occurrence. This uproar is occurring because of divinity. Divinity is involved in this uproar. Divinity is at work in this uproar. Divinity is showing forth itself in the uproar of this season. Racism is being tried. Racism is on trial. Racism has come to its point of being dealt with. Racism is being sentenced for its doings. Racism is receiving its sentence. You are in a point of fruition of where racism is blossoming its seeds. The seed of racism has reached its point. Racism has reached its point of fruition. The seeds of racism are blossoming around the country and around the world. The world is experiencing the blossoming seeds of racism. The world is experiencing the outrage of racism. People are outraged with racism. People are outraged over racism. People are outraged for different reasons, but racism is the ultimate reason for the outrage. This is a season of outrage and unrest. Racism is the basis for the outrage of this season. Racism is the reason for the unrest of this season. There will be a difference. There will be a difference in this season. There will be a difference because of this season. The events of this season will bring forth a change. A change will come forth from this season. A difference will spring forth from this movement that is occurring in this season. The movement against racism will bring forth a difference in relation to racism. This movement will bring forth a difference. Changes will be made. Change which encompasses the changes that will occur in this season will be produced through this movement. Do not judge the direction of the people of this movement. Do not judge the direction of the people doing this movement. God said, don't judge what these people are doing in the direction that they're going, that they're protesting, what they're reaching towards, what they're talking about. God says, don't judge it. He says, do not judge their actions during this movement. Do not judge their actions. We see people and we want to judge what they're doing and how they're acting and how they're responding and how they're protesting and how they're expressing. God says, do not judge their actions. Notice how the people, they act up and we call them hoodlums and thugs. But then when people in office, such as the president, he acts up and we say, well, he's just a businessman. Well, his father taught him that way. Well, he's just... Isn't that respect of persons? People are very limited to what they can do on the streets. People can burn buildings, break windows, steal items. But people in office, such as the president, or people in political office, or in many other high positions who are wealthy people, stock market, they can stop countries. They can burn down countries. They can cause war against nations. They can kill millions. And we're good with that. Think about that. Okay, anyway, let's keep going. Do not judge their behavior. I'll deal with that later. For that, God says, do not judge their actions during this movement. Do not judge their actions. Do not judge their behavior. For their actions and their behavior are being divinely directed.
Hold it right there.
You say, well, how can God be in all of that? He's not the author of confusion and division, but yet you see a bunch of division and a bunch of confusion that God created even in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament. What are you talking about? Jesus said, think not that I've come to bring peace, but I came to bring a division, a divide. Anyway, whatever. For their actions and their behavior are being divinely directed. The universe has reached its end of tolerating. The universe has reached its point of intolerance. The universe can no longer tolerate the viruses of our societies. The universe can no longer maintain its silence. The universe is screaming out against the viruses of our societies. The universe is responding to the injustices of the day. The injustices of this nation and the injustices of this world have created a cry throughout the world. The voices of those who are not for change are going to be silenced. Let me say that again. In this season, the voices of those who are not for change are going to be silenced. Their voices will not be heard. Their voices will be snuffed. Those who once snuffed out voices will now be snuffed. Their voices will be snuffed by the voices of the people who were once snuffed. The voices of the people who were once snuffed out will now be heard over the voices of the ones who once did the snuffing. Their voices will now be snuffed. This is not a period for the noise of the noisy. There will be noisiness. The noisy will make noise, but this is not the season for the noise of the noisy. Their noise will be put to silence. Don't think that the noise is coming from those on the so-called left, those coming from the Democratic Party. Don't think that it's coming from what you would call Antifa or these other things. That is not the noise of the noisy, though they are indeed making noise, and some are being noisy, but there is a divine noisiness about. God even told people in the Old Testament, when you walk around it, then scream, make a bunch of noise. See, there's a bunch of noise that you make. It's noise, but it's divine noise. What you're hearing are the voices of the universe screaming for change, screaming for equality, screaming for justice to be established and righteousness to run down like water. That's what you're hearing. You're hearing noise, but it's good noise. Like trouble, good trouble, trouble indeed, but it's good. And then you have other people making noise. And they're making noise because they're angry and they're upset at the fact that people are actually thinking that they're supposed to be made equal to them. And they're having a problem with that. We got to be careful. Again, I'm neither Republican nor Democrat. I am just one sitting on the sideline of life, looking for life to express itself in whatever manner it expresses itself, looking for life to unfold in the manner in which it's supposed to. I'm not taking sides for anybody. This season, God says, is ordained for change. You will see the stirring and the unrest among those who oppose the issues of this season. They will oppose, but they will not overcome. They will not overcome the progress or the change that will occur in this season. The violence in this season will increase. People will increase in their violence. You will see violence increase at a level unheard of. Violence will begin to come from nowhere. Violence will arise from seemingly nowhere. We're seeing that now, but this was way back in April, the 6th of April. God told me these things, and now we're seeing them heavily. Well, actually, this was June 3rd. You were seeing it begin to happen right at the George Floyd whatever, but this was at the beginning. We had just come into the knowledge of what happened to George Floyd. Those of us who gave the news any play on that particular day, June the 3rd. Violence will occur from places where there are no confrontations. And that is a trip, because we're seeing violence come from states where you never heard much of anything from, like Minneapolis, Portland, Oregon, strange places. I don't even know where all of these places are right off my head. But anyway, just saying, violence will occur from places where there are no confrontations. Some of these places where things have popped up, I never even knew black people lived there. I never knew white people lived there. I don't know who I thought lived there. I don't know if I thought that the Indians who were pushed out west lived there. I don't know who I thought lived there. I just knew they were states, but I didn't know, whatever. I don't even know where they're located on the state. So to see blacks and whites going at it and whatever else, that's new to me. People will be confronted with violence for no apparent reason. There will be no basis for the violence that will occur. There will be no rhyme or reason to the violence that will occur throughout this season. Is there rhyme or reason or basis for why they found black bodies hung in trees, or bodies found in ditches, or bodies being found beheaded, or why people are shooting people? And it is what it is. People will increase in their protests. And God was so correct on this, because we see that now that we're here in October of 2020. People will increase in their protests. People will protest in greater numbers. The people who protest will be in greater numbers than what the police will be able to mishandle. People who protest will be in greater numbers than what the police will be able to mishandle. The numbers of the people will outnumber the numbers of the police. The people will prevail over the police. The police will have to give way to the people. This whole uproar of this season is being orchestrated. This whole event is being dictated to by me. I am dictating this movement. I am dictating this season. This is a season that everything is being uncovered. This is a season where there is no covering. This is a season where the covering is being removed. This is a season where everything that is covered is being uncovered. This is a season where everything is exposed. Everything is being exposed in this season. Everything is being brought to its point of exposure in this season. Everything in this season is being brought into the forefront. This is not a passive period of history. This is not a passive time for history. Passivity will not have history in this season. Passivity is not what history will record in this season. History will not record this time of history as a period of passiveness. So we might as well get ready. This is an active period. This is a period of activity. This is a period of activeness. This is a period of activism. This is a period of activation. This is a period of activists. This is a period where activists are coming forward. This is a period where activists are being called into position. This is a period when activists are being summoned. This is a period that activists are to come forth. Activists are coming forth. Activists are being petitioned to come forth. This will not be a short season. There will be no shortness to this season. This will be a lengthy season. This will be a season of great length. The length of this season will be greater than other seasons. This will not be a short movement. This will be an extended movement. This will be an intense movement. This will be a movement of great intensity. There will be many disruptions during this season. This is a season that is filled with disruptive moments. There will be many disruptive moments within this season. There will be many disruptive movements and changes in this season. There will be many disruptive moments of change throughout this season. The influence of the people will be stripped. People's influence will be stripped from them. People who had influence before and even during this season will be stripped of such influence. People will be stripped naked of their influence. I will strip the influences of groups. I will strip different groups that have influence over people and that keeps them from evolving with the change. I will strip them. The influence of such people will be transferred. The transfer of influence. This will be a period of realignment. This will be a season of realignment. This is a season where things will begin to be realigned. This is when I will realign systems. This is a period of systematic realignment. Systematic realignment of systems. The systems of this world are being realigned. This season is where the systems of this world will begin to realign themselves. During this season, the positions of this world will go through a repositioning. The nations of this world will go through a period of repositioning. People are being positioned. People are being put into position for the realigning of systems. People are stepping forth to position themselves. People will be shuffled during this season of uncovering. People will be shuffled from their positions and others into their positions throughout the regions of this world. This pandemic period will cause people to be moved from their positions. This is where people are to be brought to account for the injustices that have been rendered. This is the season for corruption to be judged. This is the season where corruption will be judged. Corruption will receive its just due in this season. The church will not avoid its own exposure of corruption. The church will not avoid its own exposure of corruption. The church is not exempt from its payment due as well. The church is to receive its just due in this season as well, for the church itself is corrupt. The church is full of corruption. The church has become the most corrupt of all systems. Now, I will speak on that when I deal with the church, because that's specific. I won't go any further in that at this point. Now, on July 2nd, 2020, I said on that day, God spoke to me twice in that day regarding the things that will be. Well, this is one of the times right here regarding, this is the first time, the first hearing that I heard. And these are some of the generalities of it, not the specifics necessarily, but the generalities. There will be woeful events that cannot be measured. The woeful events of this season will not be able to be measured during this season. This season will bring catastrophe. There will be catastrophic events throughout this season. The events that will occur during this season will be catastrophic in the devastation they will bring. Do not get caught up on the end of things. End of things, capital E, the end, revelation, the Armageddon and all that. He says, do not get caught up on the so-called end of things. This is not the end of things. This is not where things will end, but this is where things will end. In other words, even though the world itself will not end, the world as we know it will. Things as we once knew them to be and considered them to be the norm will end. However, things will come to an abrupt end during this season. This season will end many things. Many things will come to an abrupt end during this season. This season will put an end to many things. Hearing is an important aspect of this season. This is a season that is full of hearing. This season is filled with hearing. The need to hear during this season will drive the people. This season is filled with people's need for hearing. People will be driven to hear. People will have a strong need to hear throughout this season. People's desire to hear will be great. Even though the world is not desiring to hear, they will. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm saying the world and then the church. No, I'm saying people will hear. So even though the world doesn't desire to hear, they're going to hear, because the people will come to a point in this season where their desire to hear will be great, because they're going to need to hear something, because that's where their sanity is going to come from. This season will place a demand upon people's substance, upon people to deliver substance. Those who are put forth to speak and teach, this season is going to place a demand upon you. Substance will be demanded by those who speak during this season. If you don't have a message, stay off the mic. If you don't have a message, your mic may get disconnected. You just drop the mic, okay? If you don't have a message, a true message, a right now message, a right now set of words from the very mouthedness, breathedness of God, sit down. This is not your season. You are being silenced, whether you know it, believe it, or accept it or not. For people will no longer settle for things of little or no substance. Substance will be a requirement of this season. Those who speak during this season must possess substance. Those who speak during this season must come forth with substance. Those who have been silent are going to speak forth in this season. Those who have been silent are going to speak forth what they are hearing. They are going to speak forth the things that they have heard. Those who are going to speak forth what they have heard in this season will not speak forth words that they have heard from the earth. Let me read that again. Those who are going to speak forth what they have heard in this season will not speak forth words that they have heard from within the earth. The words that the people of this season will speak forth will be words that will flow from within them. These speakers of this season will flow with revelation from within. These people will flow with revelation that will flow from within their spirit. They will begin to speak revelation that is being poured into them, that is being, not just that has been, that is being ongoing. I am uprooting the systems of this world. The systems of this world are being uprooted. I am uprooting the systems of this world that have wreaked havoc in the lives of people. I am uprooting the systems that have enslaved the people. I am removing every system that is not working for the good of the people. I am dismantling every system that is not for the people. The political system has become the most corrupt amongst the systems. The political system has done the most damage to all systems. The political system has placed its hands into all the systems of the world, and we'll talk about this later. The political system has proven itself to be an utter failure. The political system has made a muck of things. I will replace those in position in the political system. I will remove those in position within the political system. I will remove those who have been grandfathered in. I will remove those who are only serving their own good. I will remove those who have paid PAID their way in. I will remove those who have perverted their ways. I will remove those who pervert justice. I will remove those who have refused to render justice to those in need. There will be a great undertaking in the Senate. The Senate will go through a purging. The Senate will go through a deep purging. There will be a great upheaval in the Senate. There will be a renewal of heart amongst those in the Democratic Party. Why God said this way, I don't understand, but don't think it's because I love the Democratic Party, because I'm not happy with a lot of things on any side of anything. That's why I'm neither nor. The things of this season will bring a renewal of heart within those of the Democratic Party. Their renewal of heart will change the halls of Congress. The halls of Congress will be converted. The halls of Congress will be completely changed. The world will become dark. The world will become dark during this season. This season will begin to get very dark before light is shown. People will wander aimlessly during this season, as though they are wandering in the dark and unable to see. People during this season will become very hopeless. The events of this season will cause things to become very hopeless. People will not see hope in this season. People will not be able to see their way in this season. People's hearts will faint. People will lose heart during this season. People will want to give up during this season. People will give up during this season. This will not be a peaceful season. This will be everything but a peaceful season. Nothing about this season will resemble anything peaceful. The streets will be filled with tension. Now we see this. Now we feel this. The streets will be filled with tension. Tension will fill the hearts of the people. People will be full of tension, which will lead to violence. The streets will be filled with violence. Violence will fill the streets. People will begin to use their weapons in record numbers. This is something I remember God saying. People will begin to brandish their weapons, and then people will begin to use their weapons. And then as the months progress, you saw it happen. People will be full of tension, which will lead to violence. If you're not careful, you will feel that tension and you will act out in that tension. I know what I'm talking about. That tension is there for the grabbing, but you don't want to use it. And I've been guilty of it, because you can get caught up in the tension of this season right now. Be careful about that and stay ever mindful and quick to repent, meaning to turn away from and do differently when you recognize it. People will be full of tension, which will lead to violence. The streets will be filled with violence. Violence will fill the streets. People will begin to use their weapons in record numbers. People will begin to feel their country, to FEEL. People will begin to feel their country. People will see the need to defend their country, and they will do so. The economy of the United States will be devastated. The financial stability of the United States will crumble. The financial systems of the United States will take the greatest hit of all nations. The financial systems of the United States will suffer the greatest devastation than any other country in the world. The United States will lose its dignity. The United States will lose its standing. The United States will lose its footing due to this season. The United States will lose its position in the world during this season. The United States will lose its position in the world during this season. And, I think that has already occurred. We're at a much higher, a much lower number, or a much higher number in a negative sense than where we were before the pandemic season. The numbers pertaining to this virus will continue to increase. This virus will continue to spread throughout the United States, and we see this here. The deaths will continue to rise. The deaths will continue to multiply. The death rate will be alarming. The death rate will be devastating. People who humble themselves will be preserved. People who submit to the moving of this season will do good. People who submit to the rulings of this season will fare well. But people aren't submitting thus far to much of anything. As you see, there is a lot, but there is still much more to come, and you need to hear it if you desire to go into this season, or to go through this season with a knowledge of what is and what will no longer be. Be watchful.